Hello, everyone. Ron here from L.T.L Tutoring Central, and I'm here with another reading, comprehension, and discussion article. It's an article from Popular Science, and it's all about raw milk and is it safe? I grew up on a dairy farm, so I might have a few things to say about this, but I will give you a heads up. I generally go with the science, not with the popular belief necessarily, although sometimes popular belief is correct. Sometimes it's really incorrect as well, especially today with social media. Certain things become viral and everybody believes because everybody believes because everybody believes, but there's no foundation. So I tend to go with the science and the professionals, but we'll see. We'll see what the article's about. I haven't read it myself. Read the title and a couple of sentences, but I haven't read through the whole article. It's a little bit long, so it'll take us a while, but we'll see what they have to say. I have my hoodie on today. It says Learn Every Day. Underneath, we have the Tutoring Central and the website. It's very comfortable, by the way. I just threw it on for this video so you could see it. There's different colors and whatnot. There's mugs, there's t-shirts, etc. You can check out all these things in the merchandise store. In the description, there'll be a link. There'll also be a link in the description to this article. I'm reading it right from their site. To try to avoid any copyright issues, you can go directly there and look at the article yourself if you would like to, of course. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you have already, thank you very much for subscribing. Thank you to everyone who shared videos, liked videos, commented either on YouTube or send me email. You can always send me an email to inquire about my private tutoring services. I do in person here at the big table or online, any country in the world that has an internet connection, of course. Also, you can ask about getting a coupon to any of my Udemy courses. Definitely don't just pay the full price. Get a coupon. The coupons help you, but they also help me. So don't be afraid to ask for a coupon. I love giving out coupons to the Udemy courses, and you can check out all of those courses on the website. There'll be a link in the description below. There'll be lots of things down there to check out, links to my books as well, if you like. All right, I am going to share my screen now so we can have a look at this article together. I'll try not to cough. I've got my mute button here unless it sneaks up on me. Hopefully I can hit it in time. Is raw milk safe? Science has a clear answer. Raw milk consumption is on the rise by Lauren Leffer, November 18, 2024, fairly recent. Vitamin losses from pasteurization are far exceeded by the losses that result from storing milk in clear glass bottles. All right. Debate over raw milk has been heating up in recent years, and especially the past few months. There's a little play on words there you'll see in a minute. If you don't already catch it, you'll see it probably in a couple of minutes. Or come back and look again. That first line's kind of funny. Raw milk sales are rising despite emerging concerns over live avian flu in unpasteurized dairy, and it's increasingly a political talking point. Advocates of raw milk consumption claim that pasteurization reduces milk's nutritional value and removes health benefits, despite lack of scientific support for the vast majority of these claims. At the same time, experts agree that foregoing pasteurization carries unnecessary health risks. So, not even speaking specifically of milk or pasteurization, but there are a lot of claims on social media, on the internet, about health, what's good for your health or what's bad for your health. And a lot of it is just popular opinion, not based on any science or medical advice. So be very careful when you're reading what is supposedly good for you. What is pasteurization? In short, pasteurization is a combination of temperature and time, says Dennis D'Amico, an associate professor of food science who focuses on dairy safety and production at the University of Connecticut. The hotter the pasteurization temperature, the shorter the amount of time needed to kill off pathogens, and the lower the temperature, the longer it takes. There are a few approved heat time combinations in the United States, but the most common method used for store-bought refrigerated milk is 72 degrees Celsius or 161.6 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 seconds, says D'Amico. Raw milk is simply unpasteurized, and that's the way we drank it when I grew up on the dairy farm. Even before widespread pasteurization and regulations, many people would boil milk at home before drinking it to ensure its safety, notes Carrie Collegian, a dairy food scientist and associate research professor at Penn State University. Boiling is an even more aggressive form of heating than pasteurization, which was developed to kill pathogens while minimizing changes to milk's flavor and composition, says John Lucy, a food science professor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison and director of the university's Center for Dairy Research. Boiling is a very substantial heat treatment, whereas pasteurization is much gentler, he notes. In parts of the world today where pasteurization isn't well regulated or universally adopted, boiling remains commonplace. We didn't boil our milk, we just drank it raw, literally raw. Why do we pasteurize? A brief bovine history. Pasteurization goes back to the mid-1800s. French chemist and microbiologist Louis Pasteur discovered that heating beer to a certain temperature for a certain amount of time prevents the growth of undesirable microbes, which spoil the batch. He sought patents for pasteurization, initially as a means to improve the shelf life of beer and wine. Then a German agricultural chemist, Franz von Soxhlet, I'm not sure how you say that, thought to apply the same process to milk in 1886. At the time, drinking dairy was often dangerous, especially for infants and children who were frequently bottle-fed cow's milk. Harmful pathogens were commonly present in the milk supply in both Europe and the United States, and pasteurization emerged as a way to eliminate them, particularly bovine tuberculosis, which caused waves of human infections and deaths throughout the 19th and early 20th centuries. Yes, and I think I'll just say something here. There's a lot of things that have been developed over the years. This is from starting in the 1800s, and lots of vaccinations and things that started a long time ago. And the problem is now, I think a lot of people, because it's generations and generations, don't really realize just how bad things were, and just how bad it can get again if you avoid paying attention to the science, paying attention to reality in my mind. And so it's a nice idea to think that nature and natural is always good, but guess what? Nature kills too. And you eat a certain plant, and it might be natural, but you might be dead or very, very sick. So just be careful. Milk pasteurization came on the scene just as germ theory was becoming better understood and accepted, and its adoption, along with other societal shifts, led to about a 50% decline in infant mortality, a clear public health win. Yet some detractors at the time resisted the practice, especially in the US, where uptake was slower. They made claims about flavor and nutrient content similar to those still made today. In lieu of pasteurization, these naysayers initially tried to make other aspects of dairying more sanitary, in acknowledgement that microbes were, in fact, killing people. They argued that improving farm and facility conditions and checking for cow diseases would reduce risk, rendering pasteurization unnecessary, and even that pasteurization would make farmers lax in their animal upkeep, says John Lucy, a food science professor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison and director of the Center for Dairy Research. Did they not already tell us that before? But focusing on cleanliness and animal health alone proved a far more difficult and a less reliable way to manage safety than pasteurization, Lucy says. Animals can secrete microbes in their milk long before they appear sick. Even the most diligent standard cleaning doesn't eliminate everything, and the intermittent testing does nothing to prevent what falls through the cracks. In the early 1900s, US municipalities began to require pasteurization in a piecemeal fashion, and in 1924, the federal government issued the Pasteurized Milk Ordinance, PMO, which established a national program for pasteurization. It's a long, complicated document because in addition to tackling time and temperature requirements, the ordinance also details equipment design, maintenance, and sanitation strategies for improving dairy safety, rolling both approaches to dairy safety into one policy. The PMO doesn't require that all milk sold be pasteurized, but it sets standards for grade A milk. The legality of raw milk is determined at the state level, and the majority of states allow some form of raw milk sale. As of 1973, federal law prohibits the sale of unpasteurized milk across state lines. So this, of course, is talking primarily about the United States. There are uh, laws in Canada too, but I'm not sure exactly what they are at this point in time. I know we were not allowed to sell raw milk back in the day, but I don't know what the rules are at the moment. I think there are still some restrictions. In terms of just writing, I will say, if you see where it says pasteurized milk ordinance here and then PMO, that is what you should do if you're using an acronym. Put the whole word in or the whole phrase in first, and then in parenthesis you can put the short form or the abbreviation, whatever. And from then on you can say the PMO doesn't. Yeah. So just thought I'd mention that because I did have a student not do that the other day. How risky is raw milk? Drinking raw milk carries a significant risk, says Lucy. It's not that any amount of raw milk consumption guarantees illness, but every glass of raw milk is a small gamble. Prior to widespread pasteurization, milk was responsible for a quarter of all food and waterborne disease outbreaks, according to FDA data. Contracting tuberculosis is no longer a primary concern for milk drinkers, largely thanks to pasteurization, USDA surveillance, and an ongoing disease eradication program. Yet other pathogens have become common in raw milk, including listeria, some especially dangerous strains of E. coli, Salmonella, Campylobacter, I've not heard of that one, and toxin-producing Staphylococcus aureus, says D'Amico. Some tricky words there. As avian influenza continues to spread among dairy herds, milk now also frequently tests positive for the virus. Though there haven't yet been confirmed human cases of bird flu acquired through raw milk consumption, there have been reports of cats becoming ill and dying after being fed raw milk from sick cows. So there is the potential there at least. The presence of pathogens in dairy is not necessarily a function of the scale or type of farming facility, says Collegian. Both small and large processors can produce contaminated and uncontaminated milk, she emphasizes. Microbes come from the soil, the animals, the human workers, equipment, containers, and even the air. We find bacteria everywhere. No farm is a sterile environment, says Lucy. Some assessments find that a third of raw milk samples contain pathogens, according to a 2015 review authored by Lucy. Yes, now I have not been on a dairy farm for a long time, but I know when we were milking cows, there were a lot of restrictions and we took a lot of care, washing, sanitizing the milk in the milk house. The milk house had to be very, very clean. There were a lot of rules about what was allowed in there and what was not allowed in there. But there is just no possible way that you could avoid everything. As they say, the soil, the animals, people, the equipment, the containers, even the air. Like there's only so much you can do. Thresholds for detection and for human infection can differ, and different people have different abilities to fight off infection. So that doesn't mean one third of raw milk will make people sick. Yet it means illness is an ever-present possibility. Calculating exact risk and incidence rate is difficult, says Lucy, because with a fresh product that gets consumed or spoils within a matter of days, like raw milk, confirming contamination or the source of an outbreak after the fact is often impossible. Recalls are contingent on chance, he adds, where testing is lucky enough to capture evidence that a facility or farm was the origin of someone's illness days or weeks after the fact. Well, yes, when the truck came to pick up our milk, the hose went into this huge tank, pumped the milk from our tank into the truck's tank, and it all went in with all the other milk from other farms. So I'm not sure how you would weed that out. But here are some numbers anyway. About 1% of Americans, or around 3.3 million people, report consuming raw milk on a weekly basis per a 2022 FDA report. One 2017 analysis found that dairy causes an average of 760 confirmed cases of illness per year, and that unpasteurized dairy constituted 96% of those cases. Or, in other words, that raw milk was 840 times more likely to cause illness and 45 times more likely to lead to hospitalization. Now, 96% of 760 is about 730. 730 out of 303 million is not a huge number. It amounts to a 1 in approximately 4,520 chance of falling ill from consuming raw milk. Yet an important caveat is that those confirmed cases are likely a major undercount, says Lucy. It's the tip of the iceberg. In addition to the aforementioned difficulty of confirming milk-related outbreaks, many people don't report illness or don't realize it may have stemmed from drinking raw milk. One analysis of 10 years worth of food poisoning cases in Minnesota estimated that about 17% of people who drink raw milk may become ill from it. So it is difficult to get accurate numbers, I would say. And that's what this seems to be saying as well. And even though perhaps the numbers are relatively small, there is still a risk there. And as I say, it's the tip of the iceberg. And just for my ESL, EFL learners, that's an expression. And that's because the tip of the iceberg, or what is showing, the tip that's above the water, is much smaller than what's under the water. Under the water, it's huge. So there's this saying that we're not getting all of the numbers. And that's true, because sometimes when you get ill, when you get sick, if it's not too serious, you don't even go to the doctor or the hospital. You just suffer for a few days and get better. You think maybe it was a flu, influenza that you caught from someone else. Or sometimes people, if they've been to a restaurant, they blame the restaurant and say it's food poisoning, when in fact most food poisoning happens at home, because people are not as careful at home with food handling and are not trained in food handling, many. So, but it's something that it's human nature. We sort of look for something to blame, but we might not think it could have been that raw milk that we drank. Healthy adults might just suffer a few days of gastrointestinal distress. Okay, that's what I just said, from milk-borne illness, but children, people over 65, and those who are pregnant or immunocompromised are at much higher risk of severe consequences from the pathogens often present in raw milk, including death, long-term kidney damage, and pregnancy loss. And pregnant and very young people are especially encouraged to drink milk for its calcium content, notes Lucy. So, they might be drinking more than usual, so that would put you at a higher risk the more you drink. Long-term kidney damage, you may not even know what it's doing to you until many, many years later. And that's something that I have thought about over the years. In Pennsylvania, where Collegian lives and works, selling raw milk is legal via a licensing process. It's also a state where illness outbreaks due to raw milk happen often. The more raw milk consumed, the more frequent the outbreaks are. And they're constant, Collegian says. Every couple of months, somebody else is getting sick or pathogens have been found, and there's another recall. In 2024, there have been 10 recalls related to raw dairy products so far, according to the Center for Dairy Research. At the end of 2023, one salmonella outbreak linked to unpasteurized dairy from a California farm resulted in at least 171 sick people and 22 hospitalizations. The company responsible for this outbreak, Raw Farm LLC, formerly Organic Pastures Dairy Company, is headed by Mark McAfee, who also founded and chairs the Raw Milk Institute. This nonprofit organization offers guidance to farms and promotes standards intended to ostensibly lower the risk of raw milk production. Yet, despite the Raw Milk Institute's claims of clean, safe raw milk, the CEO's own farm has been at the center of 11 illness outbreaks and subject to as many product recalls since 2006. In most other sectors, they would be long gone and closed out, and they're still producing product, says Lucy. So that's an issue. I hadn't heard of this specific incident, but I have heard of lots of so-called organic products being recalled, various vegetables and other things. And so I would caution again, just because it says organic does not necessarily mean that it's safe. In fact, sometimes it's the opposite because it hasn't used I shouldn't say it hasn't used science because there is science involved, and I recognize that probably Mark McAfee and the people at this institute are trying very hard to make it better, and it probably is better. It probably is safer than it used to be, but it doesn't make it safe. It doesn't mean it's clean, safe raw milk. Uh, Raw milk will always there'll always be a certain risk. When it comes to drinking raw milk, I'm one of those folks that thinks the risk is not worth it, says D'Amico. Both Lucy and Collegian agree. Cheese, however, is a slightly different story. Cheese making involves salt, acid, drying, and aging, all processes which kill off a meaningful portion of harmful microbes, says D'Amico. Hard cheeses aged 60 days or more that are made with raw milk are relatively safe, even if the milk was initially contaminated, he notes, and he happily enjoys them. Soft and fresh cheeses made from raw milk, on the other hand, are much less safe, adds D'Amico. I wouldn't eat those. I should say something here. I did have cheese in France many years ago, um, many decades ago, actually. And sorry, I shouldn't do that, popping in the mic. Uh, it was so good, and it was either camembert or brie, or maybe both. And it was so different from what we can get here, and I believe it's because of our pasteurizing process. Um, However, I would rather choose safe than not as well. If there was a way they could do it and get the same flavor, that would be great. But is raw milk good for you? For many, the question of risk is only half the conversation when it comes to raw milk. Pasteurization's detractors promote the idea that unpasteurized dairy carries big health benefits over pasteurized milk and fashion raw milk as a superfood. Yet all of the experts Popular Science spoke with note that these claims are not well supported by scientific evidence and that there is no scientific consensus backing any particular benefits to raw milk. Some of the most popular talking points are that unpasteurized milk is more nutritious, reduces lactose intolerance, aids digestion, reduces asthma and allergy risks, promotes a healthy immune system, and boosts the gut microbiome. Most of these claims can be traced back to particular misunderstandings or misinterpretations of science, notes Lucy. Pasteurization does affect the amount of some of the vitamins in milk. Some nutrients, like vitamin C, are heat sensitive. Pasteurization might reduce vitamin C content by about 20% in milk, says D'Amico. But critically, vitamin C is present in milk only in very small quantities, he adds. Milk is not a major source of any heat-sensitive nutrients, with the possible exception of riboflavin, which is widely available in other foods. Plus, these vitamin losses from pasteurizations are far exceeded by the losses that result from storing milk in clear glass bottles, which are open to light, says Lucy. None of the proteins, fats, or minerals in milk are significantly degraded by standard pasteurization, he adds. However, the way cows are fed does influence milk's nutrient content. Grass-fed cows produce milk with a higher omega-3 content, according to one 2018 study and multiple older analyses. The benefits of pasture feeding shouldn't be mistaken for downsides of pasteurization. Yes, and I would not have thought of vitamin C from my milk anyways. I always assume I'm getting my vitamin C from other foods that I eat, fruits and vegetables, for example. Raw milk has raw milk also has nothing to do with lactose intolerance, says Collegian. That's determined solely by whether or not your own body produces lactase, the enzyme responsible for breaking down lactose. Milk itself does not naturally contain any lactase, and raw milk does not help with dairy digestion, she says. It also doesn't contain any probiotics. Some correlative studies performed in Europe have found that people who consume raw or farm milk have a reduced risk of disorders like asthma. However, Lucy points out that these studies only found a difference between raw milk and the ultra-high temperature treated, sterilized, shelf-stable milk common across Europe, not pasteurized milk according to US standards. In some cases, this research also conflates boiled farm milk with raw milk, and most studies fail to separate the effects of the traditional farming ways with drinking unpasteurized dairy. Children who grow up on farms with lots of animal contact and outdoor exposure are less likely to end up with allergies or asthma. Yet data doesn't indicate raw milk plays a role. Both Mennonite and Amish children have high rates of raw milk consumption. However, Mennonites have significantly higher asthma rates than Amish children, according to a 2018 study. The difference likely comes down to lifestyle, says Lucy. Mennonite children, he notes, have less contact with animals. Okay, I didn't know that. We had lots of Mennonites living around our farm. We were, friends with our neighbors. So um, I don't know why Mennonites would have children would have less contact with animals. It didn't seem that way when I saw, but I'm going on very limited personal experience. But yes, I think the problem is anytime when you're trying to figure out what is causing a particular illness or a particular issue, it's always difficult when there are so many factors involved. It does make sense to me, to some extent, at least intuitive sense, that growing up, your childhood on a farm, you would be experiencing a lot of contact with the animals, with the hay and straw and other things I won't mention. Um, so yeah, that could make a difference in whether or not, and it may have nothing to do with the milk at all. There's too many factors to weed out. Science is not set in stone. That's true too. Science is not always right either. I will admit that. New research can bring new data to light, and it's possible that down the line, reviews and analyses may eventually reveal some small benefit to raw milk consumption. But meanwhile, the potential danger, especially for children, are well established. When it comes to milk, we have an easy, well-proven way of mitigating the harm without any proven downsides. Why not use it? Okay, this story is part of Popular Science's Ask Us Anything series, where we answer your most outlandish, mind-burning questions from the ordinary to off the wall. Okay, that's interesting. Anyway, I will put a link to this actual article so you can go and look at it specifically yourself. Yes, I agree with pretty much everything that is said in the article. I think let's follow the science, even if it does reduce a little bit some vitamin or some benefit. Um, the cost on the other side is too high. Um, did I suffer any ill effects from drinking milk on the farm? I don't think so. Perhaps sometimes I got sick because of it. I don't know. We would have always just assumed it was a influenza or something at the time, or just a stomach upset, or probably blamed it on some food rather than milk. I don't think milk it didn't come up. I did sometimes question occasionally the milk we were drinking because it was so unprocessed, let's say. I won't mention specifics, but yeah, it was a question in my mind occasionally. I don't love milk. I don't drink milk now. I do use a little bit of milk in my cereal, or if I'm cooking, I do use some milk, but it's not raw milk anymore. And but I don't use very much. I do enjoy cheeses and things, but as they say, that's a lot. There's a lot more processing that goes on, and so in Canada, in Ontario, anyways, I think it's all pasteurized milk that they use in the cheeses at any rate. But I would probably eat cheese that was unpasteurized as long as I felt that it was safe in other ways, because a lot of the time, um, you know, food storage is very important. Food handling is very important. I think we should probably do more training for people for what they do at home as well. I'm just going to stop the share for a minute because I think that a lot of illnesses are caused from poor food handling or poor food storage at home, and then they blame someone else, but I think a lot of it comes from our own homes. Very interesting article. You can let me know what you think. Lots and lots of people drank raw milk and did not get sick from it and did not die from it. That doesn't mean that it's safe, however. And this is also a misconception that you see often on social media. Well, we survived. I've been lately seeing a lot. Well, we survived the 1970s and we didn't have pads and we didn't wear helmets when we rode our bicycles. And yeah, okay, I'm very happy that you survived. The ones who didn't survive aren't writing on social media, probably never even knew about social media because they died when they hit their head on the pavement and didn't have a helmet on. And, it's a bit of a silly argument just because some people survived. Many got sick, many suffer long-term illnesses or are dead. So I think you do want to be cautious, even though most of the time you're going to probably be okay. You're probably going to be safe drinking raw milk. And many times you might even be okay doing some of these other things and you survived. I survived. I got through, um, living on a farm and doing many things that nowadays I would caution a child to do. Don't do that. That's not safe. At the time when I was a kid myself, you don't always think of these things, I don't think I ever thought I was invincible. I know they say kids think that. I guess some do. I don't think I ever did. I was always pretty cautious, but I wasn't always, when I think back to some of the things that I did or we did, it wasn't as cautious as maybe it should have been, and we just got lucky and didn't get damaged. Now, I don't think you should wrap everyone up in bubble wrap either. Sometimes you're going to have to get scratched up, bumped up, and hurt, and you'll recover from most of that. But some things do make sense, and I think maybe we should listen to the science and follow it. And I know that now there's a lot more being done in sports with concussions and things. And so they're trying to come up with better helmets, better padding, different rules. And some people complain about it. Well, back in my day, but I would much rather see my son, my daughter, my brother, or whoever it is, uh, be safe and not have, mental problems or physical problems for decades or worse, die just because, we want to prove we're tough or something. I don't know. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. I think it's more than 2 cents worth. I hope you enjoyed the article. You can watch the video again if you like, or you can go to the site. I'll put a link in the description and check out the article on your own. Let me know what you think of it. Um, did you drink raw milk? Did you survive? I guess if you're letting me know you did. But it's always interesting to hear from viewers. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Click on all the notifications as well. That helps. And other than that, just keep learning and keep having fun. I'm looking for my button here and to stop recording. Until next time, it's Ron from L.T.L. Tutoring Central. Bye-bye for now.